right. Yay, me for remembering.
Mhm.
And so I'm just going to read a quick bio of our guest here. We have Luke Davis. Wave at us, Luke, please. And Raquel Ward, his right-hand person. Wave at us. Thank you. And so, Luke, sorry, I have to, I'm at that age, believe it or not, where I need some reading glasses. Okay.
Hi,
So
everybody.
hello, Suli. Welcome. So Luke Davis currently serves as the Vice President of ICF Coach Training for the International Coaching Federation, leading the advancement of coach training and education. Luke previously served as an executive director of National University College, as well as founder and CEO of Make It Matter LLC, a boutique consulting organization focused on helping individuals and companies find purpose and meaning in today's workplace. Luke brings over 15 years of experience as both a leader in higher education and a nonprofit executive focused on operations, program management, and learning and development. Luke holds a master's degree in adult and higher education from the University of Missouri. He is also a certified senior professional in human resources, as well as a Society of Human Resources Senior Certified Professional. Welcome, Lucas Davis, guys.
Thank you, guys. Excited to be here.
And we have Raquel Ward. Raquel Ward joined the ICF early this year as the manager of ICF Coach Training, which was formerly known as the Program Accreditation Department. She is responsible for managing advertising on and overseeing all ACTP and ACSTH program applications, as well as all non-accredited training review and approval for credentialing purposes. Raquel was born and raised in South Florida, yay! Attended the University of Southern Oregon, and now resides outside of Lexington, Kentucky with her husband, 9-month-old daughter, their dog, and cat. Raquel has spent the majority of her career in human resources and finance and is thrilled to now be a part of the International Coaching Federation. Welcome, Raquel. All right.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us. And so thanks everyone for joining, and I'm going to turn this over to Luke to just greet you all and start speaking, and they're going to, Luke and Raquel are going to tag team some of the most frequent questions that come along that they're going to share with, and we're going to take time in between, maybe like 15-minute intervals to just address some of your questions. So keep the questions coming. I'll be monitoring that, and we're going to just be casual and just ask these questions and have good talk, get something to drink, and just enjoy this time, okay? All right. So go ahead, Luke. Go ahead and
Tisha, appreciate it. Listen, good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be here with you. I may have met some of you in person at the Miami chapter event. I see a few familiar faces. It's been a couple of months. Obviously, pre-quarantine, we were there. I think that's important to say. It was pre-quarantine when we were all gathered there together. So I'm glad to be here with you today, and I'm so glad to have Raquel here with me as well to talk about, ICF Global. Want to do a little bit of just an overview of some changes which you may or may not have already heard, and then we'll get into some specific things about what my family organization is doing, the future of coach training, and then we really want this to be a conversation. So as you have questions or just need anything answered, feel free to pop those in the question box, and Misha will be stopping us occasionally to sort of talk about those, because we want you to get the most information and obviously the most relevant information that is directly applicable to you. to do that. So I want to spend a majority of our time really just conversating about things that you may have questions about, or even things outside, maybe my family organization and other areas of ICF. I'm happy to answer any questions I have, and if I can't answer the question, then I promise I'll get you to someone who can. As many of you guys know, at the chapter event you saw in the communications that you've seen sent out from ICF this year, 2020 has been a big year for us. Even pre-COVID, with a lot of changes that we've made, and COVID has only made things more interesting. But to give you a quick rundown of that, just so that you guys are aware, on January 1st, our name actually changed officially. So we are now the International Coaching Federation. That switched from International Coach Federation. And we created actually these 6 new family organizations that actually focus on a specific area of sort of these areas of the coaching profession. And these include the foundation, which is really all about social impact and how do we use coaching for good globally. We have credentials and standards, which is really about leading the way in credentials, which are your ATC, your PCC, and your MCC, as well as developing some micro credentials and specialty credentials that you'll see rolled out over the next couple of years. My family organization focuses on coach training, which is we do all of the program accreditation efforts and curriculum review for coach training, coach specific training. So training providers and institutions and schools that are looking to offer ICF accredited curriculum to sort of teach coaching students. That's what Raquel and I directly sort of oversee and lead. We also have our coachings and organization, family organization, which really focuses on using coaches internally in corporations. And so that's a membership-based entity, and where they're partnering with businesses globally that already have an internal coaching program, while also partnering with those businesses that use sort of coaching for managers and supervisors that you guys may be aware of. The other family organizations we're talking about, we have the one that you guys all are a member of is the ICF Professional Coaches Family Organization, and that's the membership wing of ICF. And that family organization really represents sort of every coach, every practitioner that is practicing coaching and doing that. That's your family organization. You have a membership entity home there as part of being a part of the South Florida chapter, as well as ICF Global. So there's a whole lot of new things that have happened this year that have really changed. The simplest way to describe all the changes in ICF this year is that we have created these organizations, and this, we've went from sort of this hierarchical up and down organization to really a matrix organization, if you're familiar with organizational development. So we truly are a matrix organization now, where we have these individual organizations really leading the way in very specialty and niche areas. Whereas before we had one board that was really governing globally all of these areas, and now we've gone to 6 boards that are individually governing each of these, with a global board overseeing the work of all of the other boards. So we truly have transformed into this sort of global matrix organization, and we did that really because we heard a lot of feedback from wanting to be able to specifically have more focus on some certain areas to be able to do that. So we wanted a board like our board that is really focused on coach training, that knows coach training, and so that they can govern that rather than just having a global board that is trying to be an expert on every single thing. So we have a board of coach training experts. Credentials and Standards has a board of credentials experts. Professional Coaches has a board of professional coaches that have been practicing for a number of years. Foundation has trustees that have experience in social impact and also raising money for the foundation for social good, et cetera, et cetera. So those are some of the big changes that have really happened this year with ICF, and we're excited to sort of see where those goes. We did go with this new model we just started this year. So while a lot of your questions today, we'll be able to answer some of them, and then some of them are still on the horizon as we really are only 6 months into this new structure. Sometimes we do joke around the office is that 6 months feels like 6 years already because of the coronavirus.
You're shopping for things online.
It sort of feels like that already, that we have been in that much larger
plate
of being able to
you're going to potentially drive over to or buy it up, pick it up curbside, have it shipped to your neighbor's porch, whatever that is. You're expecting that what you're looking at online
maybe you can
is the same thing that's going to end up in your car when they bring it out curbside.
Feedback there.
Okay, I've muted. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Hey, it all happens. We're all we're all working from home and trying to navigate this. So totally okay. So that's sort of where we are as an organization. Wanted to give you that good organization update so you truly know of sort of how things have been refocused and sort of hear it directly from ICF senior leadership. And so I thank Ludna and Misha for even inviting me here today, and glad that I got to meet some of you at the Miami chapter event earlier. So wanted to sort of give you that update. What Raquel and I are going to talk about today is really coach training specific. So really about things like, how do I talk to people who want to become a coach? How do we select an appropriate training school or training provider to actually receive coaching? What does program accreditation mean? What are the 3 levels of program accreditation? Why are those valuable? Why do we promote those? Why do we call those the gold standard? We'll spend some time on also coach continuing education, or CCEs, which you all are familiar with if you're credentialed, because you need those for renewal and things like that. And then anything else, really, I want to open up the floor to be able to listen to anything that you guys have, or any questions that you may have about coach training, or anything else with ICF that I'm able to help answer. I'm happy to do that today during my time here with you. So we're going to go ahead and we'll get started, and Raquel and I will sort of tag team this to talk about all of these things, and then we'll stop and answer any questions. If you have questions in the meantime, please put them in the chat where Misha can see those, and she'll stop us and give us those questions as we go along. The first thing that we really want to talk about is, we know so many people, the number one question that we get asked in the phone calls that we receive per week from people interested in becoming a coach, that is like the number one topic area of being able to decipher, how do we become a coach? And so the answer to that ICF has always said is that to become a coach, you really need coach specific training. And that is the first step. In the chat, I actually have put a hyperlink that you're free to check out if you haven't done this, but this is a website that is maintained by ICF and our team here. And it's an entire website, and although very basic, we're going to be building on this within the next couple months and year of really all the information that you can send prospective people to as you're talking to those individuals, or if you're having a conversation with someone and you're picking up on sort of those attributes that really make a great coach, and you think, hey, have you ever thought of becoming a coach? We wanted a website created that really focused on what does becoming a coach mean? What is the process for becoming a coach? And so all of those things come into one. But if you haven't, make sure you check out that website. And it's a great website to provide anyone who's interested, because it really outlines the process of becoming a coach. And the first step of that is really selecting what coach training program or what coach training aspects that you're going to want to go through, right? So with that being said, I'll tell you a little bit about, the 3, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of the 3 accreditations, then I'm going to let Raquel jump in and talk about each one of those individually, just to give a brief update. But essentially, ICF Global really, we have 3 program accreditations. Now, a lot of schools out there are not accredited. And so, that's something that we want to talk about here today as well, is that what's the difference between an accredited and non-accredited training program with ICF? When a program is accredited by ICF, that essentially means that they have supplied us and my team, Raquel or Maria, who's not on this call, the curriculum, the course documents, a plan for train the trainer, a list of their faculty. We have reviewed their website. We have they've actually signed compliance statements that they're going to uphold the ICF Code of Ethics, that they're also going to follow the Code of Conduct for training providers and things like that. So the way to think about program accreditation, if you're not familiar with program accreditation, is that ICF has really validated and verified this program's information. We have looked over their curriculum. We have made sure that their faculty are credentialed. We have ensured that their website meets compliance standards. And by saying that, we make sure that their website has the name of the program, a phone number where they can be reached, an email. There are lots of schools, more and more of these overnight coaching schools that are popping up, as I'm sure that you guys have noticed, of like, become a coach in a weekend, or, spend a day with us and become a coach. Those are not accredited programs and should not be accredited programs, because we all know that that's not possible, right? You can't become a coach in a weekend. You can't become a coach in a day. It's a dedicated process, and so things like that. And so that's the importance of really the way we think about coach accreditation and program accreditation, is really that ICF has taken a in-depth look at their curriculum, at all the aspects of their coach specific training. And we've sort of asked them questions back and forth. And then we've sort of said, okay, you actually do meet the standard to deliver ICF quality coach training education. And that's something that we're trying to promote. We are going to start a campaign of where we are going to reach out to those schools that are non-accredited to talk to them about accreditation. Some of those are those fly-by-night schools that are doing that predatory marketing, and that's not something that we want in resemblance to ICF. That's not ICF standards, and we think that dilutes the profession and the validity of the profession in the future with all of these advertising of becoming a coach in a weekend and things like that. And so we are constantly sort of talking with those programs, sending out compliance letters, and even sometimes some cease and desist letters about false advertising that's happening. So anytime that you see that, please make sure that you go on our website and let us know about that. There is an ethics complaint process that you fill out. If you're aware of coach training schools who are accredited by us that are doing any of those things, please make sure we do that. That's our double check to make sure that they truly are following that. But we want our coach training providers and our institutions, whether they be a small boutique company or whether they be Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., or Rice University in Texas, offering our program accreditations. We want them to be held to the highest standards, and they understand that by signing on with us. If any of you have ever submitted a coach training application, you know that it is exhaustive and long and tedious. So that's also why we don't make gaining accreditation very easy. We want lots of information. We want to make sure that we are exploring every aspect of their program and that we truly understand what's happening in their program. So with that being said, we want to stop really quick for questions, Misha, and then I'll turn it over to Raquel to talk about sort of the three different types that we have.
Yes, we have two questions that came in. One is from Joanna Davis. How does the credentialing standards arm, let me start over. How does the credentialing arm interact with the coach training arm to ensure we know where to focus our training programs?
Yeah, so interesting that you asked that question. Thank you. That's a really good question. So if you've heard of ISO, which is the International Standards Organization, it is the organization that sort of regulates and has leading and best practices in both program accreditation and credentialing. One of their biggest requirements is that credentialing and accreditation cannot be housed in the same department. Now, that is much of the reason that we actually made the split into splitting them into two separate departments. The reasoning behind that is because coach training should never have a direct link to emphasize credentialing, and credentialing should never have a direct link to emphasize coach training. They actually should be two independent bodies making decisions of themselves, but partnering. So that's the important thing that I mentioned first off, is that we are completely separate family organizations. However, we are the two family organizations that most directly work together with each other, with what we can share. Because if we make a change in coach training, that's going to have an effect on credentials and standards and along with credentials. So we do work very, very closely with them. Carrie Abner, who is my direct colleague, who is the vice president of credentialing and standards, her and I work very closely together. We meet on almost a weekly basis to talk about ongoing issues, if there's anything that's happening and sort of those things. So we do partner very, very closely. But with that being said, we are two totally separate bodies. And that is actually the leading practice, because we would never want coach training and credentialing talking to each other to plan so eloquently, okay, well, I'm going to do this, so you're going to do this, so let's work this out together. That's not essentially how program accreditation or credentialing should work in any industry. What should happen is that the coach training board independently should decide what's required for someone to get an education in a particular topic. So, there's other industries which are regulated, right? And we're not regulated. So right now the board is obviously said, we want people with ICF accreditation in these areas, and they have to be this number of hours. That's essentially our standards that we set. That is the coach training board's responsibility to set those. Where credentialing comes in is that once those are passed and set into place, credentialing then says, okay, coach training has determined the education. So let's look at the education level, but then let's add on the experience that we need in addition to that to actually obtain a credential. So it's a partnership, but it is a very partnership where we respect the boundaries of each other's sort of jurisdiction, so to say, so that one isn't too heavily influencing the other. Because anyone, if we did that, it would essentially be like, hey, I'm making this change. Let's launch a new credential tomorrow. And it's going to be called, the ZCC, whatever we want to come up with, right? And we don't ever want that to happen. We want coach training and their dedicated board to focus on really what does education mean for coaching students, and what does it take to become actually a competent coach. And then we want credentials really focused on, okay, based on the education that coach training has set, what needs to happen to actually get them as a credentialed coach to practice in this industry. So hopefully that gives a little bit of insight on that.
Luke, just a quick follow-up question on that same topic. What are the micro specialty credentials?
Oh yeah, so and Misha and I were talking about this. So credentialing is always the hot topic, right? Because everyone wants to know sort of, okay, I have an ACC now, I'm on my road to PCC, I have a PCC, I really want to be an MCC. And then what you're talking about specialty and micro credentials, oh wow. So ICF is currently looking at a set of micro credentials and specialty credentials to begin testing and rolling out those in the coming years. So there's a whole board actually dedicated to looking at that. So whether that is, and those can be in multiple areas. So nothing that I'm saying here is set in stone, and these are all sort of just examples of providing you that. But there could be a specialty credential in health and wellness coaching. There could be a specialty credential for being a coach training educator. So if you serve on a faculty member for a coach training program, there could be a specialty credential for that. That's a different level of mastery. There could be a specialty credential for coaching for individuals with different ability levels. So whether that's coaching individuals at different ability levels or coaching we have many coaching programs that are accredited that really are focused on individuals with ADD, ADHD, things like that. So there actually could be a specialty credential or micro credential created that deals directly with coaching in that population or that sort of niche area of coaching. So that's just a couple examples of sort of what is a specialty credential or what is a micro credential. A great example is that you heard sort of Misha reading my bio at the beginning. I hold two HR credentials. Within the HR field, some micro credentials under those is that there's a micro credential in global human resources as opposed to just a general human resources degree. Because as we all know, in different areas of the world, human resources and employment law are very, very different depending on what country you live in and the laws that are passed there. So specialty and micro credentials are really looking at, that task force is really looking at what are the most prevalent areas of coaching that we can identify some competencies for, and develop a specialty or micro credential, so that you may be a PCC, but you also may have a micro credential in coach training education, which means that you understand adult learning theory and classroom management and how to engage students in a classroom, in addition to being able to teach coaching skills.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. Luke, Alex,
No
how are you? and so Alex, he's asking, how can we study or train specifically for ICF assessment? And now that he's, finished, he's attended the ICF accredited school, but now what? And he has a follow-up question on that. He's asking, what is ICF doing to combat those rip-off programs?
Yeah, so a couple of things here. So obviously this is a credentialing level question. So you're looking to take the assessment to gain your credential, right? So based on what coach training program you went to and based on the number of coaching hours experience that you have depends on your credential. Some of our programs lead directly to an ACC. Some of them can lead directly to a PCC depending on your experience. So couple of things here. After you've completed your program, obviously the next thing would be to actually get your experience hours in. So where you log your experience hours, coaching in that way. Part of the credentialing process is there's two additional parts to that, and that is mastering the CKA, which is the coach knowledge assessment. So that would be the thing, and there are resources out there. And if you're not familiar with those, email me those and I can send you those resources. There's resources in preparing for that, to do that. And the other thing that you have to do when you submit a credential application is that you have to provide a performance assessment recording. So we want a recording of you actually coaching in a coaching session, a true coaching session with a transcript attached to that. And essentially what we do is we take the markers for the PCC markers areas, and we sort of have identified those competencies of like, what happens to coach? So when we're listening to these recordings, and it's not staff who actually is doing this, it's actually assessors. So assessors from the coaching community that we have selected and we have trained specifically on how to assess performance assessments. They're listening to these and reading these transcripts to see if those markers are present. Some examples of those markers are like, did you establish the contract? Are you in the coaching mindset? Are you recommending? Or are you things like that? So those blurry areas, and some programs have a bigger issue with that of blurring the lines of a consultant versus a coach, right? And so they're looking for all of those markers in that performance assessment to make sure that they're confident in the coaching session that you submitted, that you're actually meeting or exceeding those markers at the minimum level. So, the best advice I give for preparing to apply for a credential and things like that is just reviewing that information. If you went to an accredited training program, we've looked at their curriculum and we've decided that their curriculum is good. It's good enough to be ICF accredited. So reviewing those, and then in the performance assessment, just making sure that you're mindful of really being in that coaching mindset, that you're not recommending, you are establishing, that contract, and just reviewing those sort of markers that are associated with that coaching behavior that you learned. And then the second part of the question was, how are we combating sort of all of sort of these rogue schools, possibly with all of this advertisement? If we find that an accredited body, so an institution that we've accredited, if we get complaints on them, we actually open an investigation into that thing. And that's led by myself and my team, of where we actually will investigate complaints that are submitted to us to make sure they are compliant. We have a much harder time with those schools who are non-ICF affiliated. Now, we do have non-accredited training schools who are using ICF's logo inappropriately. And so for every one of those that we find, we do send them a legal cease and desist letter, because that's actually a violation of our copyrights and trademarks. For those who don't mention ICF particularly, but are still advertising all of this coaching by night type of thing, coaching in a weekend, it's much harder for us. And we're currently working on a strategy because we have no jurisdiction over that. We have no jurisdiction. So our philosophy has been thus far is really education. We need to educate individuals that really they should be looking for an accredited program to attend. So if a program is not accredited, they need to think about what goes along with that. It's not saying that we don't have some non-accredited programs that are okay. We do have people gain credentials by going through non-accredited programs, but we want the accreditation to be looked at in such a way that people really understand that this has ICF's approval based curriculum wise, and they truly are teaching our core competencies.
Luke, thank you for that. I'm going to allow Shaquila to ask her question. I like her purpose and cause around this. Shaquila, can you unmute yourself? Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Luke. My question is how ICF could see Asia Pacific as a market for creating their representative as a coach, especially Pakistan is really in urgent need to have excellent coaches who could help villages, handicapped women to stand up financially and emotionally in weak economy. Or might be, you can say how I could be a good representative of ICF in Pakistan, so to help weak women here to become a coach. Actually, I believe in that coaching um, is like a diamond, and it should be shine everywhere in the world, and everyone in the world must understand that how to learn and how to teach. It doesn't matter he or she has a degree or not, but if we connect all the area of Asia Pacific where the people are really in need to understand something more deeply, then I think International Coaching Foundation will take a lead in this uh,
Sure.
good cause.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no, listen, great question. A question we get frequently is just how are we expanding globally, right? And where are the efforts and where are things like that? So before I answer your question, let me also say this is completely out of my wheelhouse and my responsibility. So this would sit under the family organization for ICF professional coaches. So that's where that truly sits, because they manage sort of all of the chapters in the area with the regional support staff and things like that. We do have staff, ICF staff, that are in Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific that focus specifically on chapters and sort of getting market data and other things to decide where do we establish new chapters, which countries are our focus, and things like that. I'm not on that team that makes those decisions. However, I know that there's a number of factors that's looked at, and I know that Middle East and Africa and Asia are some focus areas coming up for the next couple of years. So there are going to be strides that are made there. I'm happy to connect you with someone from ICF professional coaches to talk about this individually. They'll be happy to help you, and they'll be able to be much more knowledgeable of sort of the regional global reach out strategy. In addition, the other thing is that this almost sounds like a partnership with the foundation to me, because there's a social aspect for good that's coming to mind here when I talk about that. And I know that with Ignite, that you guys may or may not be familiar with, and some other new coaching things that are launching through the foundation in the future, that may be of interest as well. But I'm happy to connect you with those individuals, which you'd be able to have those discussions with. So I apologize, but that is out of my wheelhouse. So I've learned really quickly to be able to tell you what's in my wheelhouse and what's out. But they're the body that really decides the global strategy. But I'm happy to connect you with those.
All right. Thank you, Luke. That's it for now for the questions. Keep the questions coming. So Luke, you could continue to expand on some most common questions. If you'd like to talk briefly about the TPSS before you start going into like how do I obtain CE hours for training.
Yeah, so I'm gonna turn it over to Raquel at this point, who is like the TPSS expert. She manages that directly, and Raquel also she is the one that actually is reviewing all curriculum that is submitted from coach training programs globally as well. So she has the eye for that. So we'll let Raquel talk about sort of just a brief overview of the 3 accreditation types, and then talk about the TPSS, which is how you can find coach training.
Good deal. Thank you.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. It's lovely to join you. As Luke said, I oversee curriculum review, program accreditation. I manage the TPSS. So I'm going to go ahead and start by giving you a quick overview of the 3 different program types. And then I think that'll give you a pretty good foundation of, based on what kind of type of program you might be interested in, how to then use that, your needs to then search through the TPSS. So for the 3 different program types, we currently have the CCE, the ACSTH, and the ACTP program. To start with the CCE, that stands for Continuing Coach Education. These programs are, they're typically supplemental or advanced coaching programs that are going to be 1 to 29 hours. As Luke mentioned earlier, a lot of students and coaches will take these programs to renew their credentials. So to meet that requirement for your credential renewal, they're usually pretty specific in nature as well. We then have the ACSTH program. That stands for Approved Coach Specific Training Hours. And with those programs, they're going to be 30 plus hours. These programs tend to be more foundational, I would say, in your coach training. And they don't always have to be start to finish coach training programs, but they do have a lot, they're heavily focused in our core competencies. So one of the requirements for this program type is that it is 80% focused in core competencies and then 20% in resource development. So we want to make sure that these programs are very heavy in core competencies and teaching, the start to finish of all of those core competencies. And then 20% can be resource development or business development, things in the nature of how do I develop a website, or how do I gain coaching clients, things that are not specific to your coach training, but would assist you in your coaching future. The main difference between an ACSTH and CCE program as far as those core competencies is going to be the CCE is a little more relaxed. So it actually has a 2-to-1 ratio in the requirement for core competencies, as it is more of a continued education. Then within the ACSTH programs, we're going to require, like Luke mentioned, that you have a functioning website. We're looking that your program does offer 5 observed coaching sessions within your training, where students are given the platform to practice what they're learning in class. You would have an instructor then kind of floating through, if you have it broken up into groups or even individually, providing feedback, and then providing written feedback to those students in 3 of your sessions. So that's going to be a big requirement there, in addition to all of your audit materials. We also have the ACTP program, which is an accredited coach training program, and that is going to be your programs that are 125 plus hours of curriculum. It once again does have the 80% core competency requirement and the 20% resource development. This program is going to be the most rigorous, the most robust. It is a true start to finish coach training program where you are providing your cohorts and the students within this program all of the foundations and everything they really need to know, from all of the core competencies to you provide mentor hours, you provide the observed coaching sessions. These programs actually also include the performance evaluation, which is conducted almost as a final evaluation at the end, where it's an oral exam where in front of your instructor, the coach will then, or the student will perform a coaching session in front of the instructor where they are coaching at a PCC level. That is a requirement for these programs, or for this program. And within that, the mentor hours, as well as the performance evaluation, we do have credential requirements within this program type as well. So we require that for mentor hours and a performance evaluation, that it be a PCC or an MCC credentialed coach that is conducting these sessions. An ACTP program, we do also ask, because it is a higher level of a program and it is so robust, that you have a director of training within the program. This person is responsible for overseeing the curriculum, the content, the faculty, all areas of this program, and making sure that it is compliant and up to standards and is maintained throughout the credentialing period. This director of training also is required to hold a PCC or an MCC credential. As I'm mentioning credentials, I'll also say for the ACSTH program, you do also have to hold a credential to be a faculty member teaching, really for the ACTP program and the ACSTH program. Any faculty member that is instructing the core competencies must hold an ICF credential. We do not have that requirement for the CCE programs. So that's a big distinction between the two, between the three programs. For the ACSTH and the ACTP, you are required to have a credentialed instructor. Depending on the level of the program will depend on the level of the credential required for certain areas. And then also I would say the biggest difference is the requirement in the core competency ratio versus resource development for the programs. Now, when you're looking at the TPSS, there's so much information there. Really, when you think about it, we currently have, thousands of accredited programs, and we have those accessible to anyone looking for coach training on our website. I always recommend to people, if you're going to be looking from the student's perspective, someone looking for coach training, the more specific that you can be within the TPS when you're entering criteria, the easier it will be to find a coach training program that's probably best suited to you. So when we're talking about criteria within the TPSS, you have the option to select your program type. You can select your program delivery method, whether that's in person. I know a lot of that's very limited right now, but virtual, if you want a combination of in-person and virtual. I do always recommend, if you're searching through the TPSS in virtual only mode, you don't have the opportunity to then be specific as to where the location you're looking for. The reason for that is that we are a global entity, so within that, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. As long as you meet the criteria or the requirements to enter a program, we want to give you all the options that are available to you. So if you're using the TPSS and you are looking for, say, a program in Florida, you would definitely want to make sure, even if you're looking for something that's mainly virtual, or really with everything being virtual now, you're still going to want to select at least a combination of in-person and virtual, because within that it'll give you a drop-down box where you can select where you're looking for in the United States, as well as Canada and Australia, and I believe the UK. From that drop-down box, we also give you the opportunity to look for specific states and provinces. So that, I think that is extremely helpful when you're looking for a coach training program specific to your area. We give you the opportunity to search for programs by the language. You can search by coaching specialty. So if you're looking for executive coaching or leadership coaching, relationship coaching, we have probably close to about a dozen different specialties that we offer within the TPSS to really help you narrow down your search and find a program that's going to meet what you're looking for. Now, from a program stance with the TPSS, when we accredit your program, we are going to send you a survey. We will create your listing within the TPSS. We will add, how many training hours you offer, your program type, all of your organizational and contact information that you have provided us that's linked with your organizational account. We will also include, of course, your accreditation dates, but essentially we're just kind of building the bones of your TPSS listing. When you receive your approval packet, there will be a link within that approval packet, I believe it's on page 2, where we give you a survey application to complete that that is going to allow you to really expand on that TPSS listing and individualize it for your program. So do you want to give us not just a program description, or not just an organizational description, but your program description? You can add that there. Are you offering your program in in 5 different countries? That would be important to add. Are you offering it in different languages? Anything that is really more specific than the basics we're pulling from your application, you can provide to us so that we can provide that to students, because we find that the more information a student has, the more attracted they're going to be to a program, because they're going to have a better understanding of what that offering is. If an organization just tells us, the language, the location, and a brief organizational description versus an organization that gives us that program description and really can market it to the students that they're trying to attract as well, that's going to help those students be able to identify that that's an organization that they're really interested in. So that's something that we definitely strongly encourage. And if you ever have any questions in that area, or even finding specific results for looking for programs as well, you're welcome to reach out to me at any time at support@coachfederation.org, and I will put that in the chat for you. And reach out to me, and I'm happy to guide you through this process, any processes really that you need help with, or any understanding. If you have questions about specific programs, I'm really here to be used as a resource as much as I can to you and support you in any way that I can. And I hope that answered the questions.
Thank you, Raquel. Well, I have a few follow-up questions
Sure.
here, and forgive me if you did mention some of these already. So one of the questions is, what advice do you have for individuals to get their 3-day training approved for 4 essential CE hours, so like 30 hours?
For a training organization to have those hours approved?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So the first thing I would say is that you want to look at the structure of your program that you're offering to really be able to determine what program type you would fall into. Obviously, it would be a CCE or an ACSTH program based on the program requirements. But I think my follow-up question to that would be, I'd want to know how many of those hours were core competency versus resource development, and what the goal of the program was. Are you looking to work with students that are at more of a beginner level and need that real extensive core competency coverage? Are you looking to provide observed coaching? Are you looking to provide this as more of a path to an initial credential? Is it for renewal? I think really establishing what program type would be the first step. Next, I would encourage you to go to our website. And on our website at coachfederation.org, I would go to the Accredit a Program tab. And then I would select that program type, and I would start looking at the requirements. On all of our program types within that Accredit a Program tab, we also have sample applications. So I would pull up that PDF of a sample application, and I would start kind of looking at the meat and the potatoes of my program and what I really need to provide the ICF and what I still need to develop.
Thank you, Raquel. Another question along that line is, how long does it take to get a program accredited by ICF?
Absolutely, that's a great question, and that's a question we have a lot. So it's different for all 3 program types, because the amount of documentation that's provided to us is a little more robust the further you move up in programs. So a CCE program accreditation or program review typically takes 4 weeks. I would say an ACSTH program would probably be closer to 6 to 8 weeks. And then right now, ACTP programs are looking at closer to 12 weeks. And with that the biggest part of that program, one, it's the largest program with hours and then requirements, but also you are with the 2 performance performance evaluation recordings that you submit, we send those off to our assessors, and they have up to 12 weeks to review those. Now, we typically get results back quicker than that, and we are reviewing curriculum during that time, but with current cues and that time with assessors, you're looking at 12 weeks for an ACTP program.
Sorry, I was on mute. And one last question that came through was, what suggestions do you have for first-time course provider applicants?
Absolutely. So once again, I would start with the program type, and then for me, I would recommend that you go to that sample application. That sample application is really going to give you the bones of your program structure and what we're going to be looking for when you ultimately submit your application. So just even a quick review, I think, of that application is going to give you such a good foundation of how to start building that program out, and what type of materials you're going to need to provide your students, and how you really want to structure things.
Thank you, Raquel. And another one just came through. Wait a minute, maybe Luke just answered it. Did you just answer it?
The scholarship one? Sorry, I was trying to, as Raquel was talking, I was trying to give all the websites and things like that, so you all had those. Yeah, the question about scholarships is that, so, you know, we don't give the scholarship because we essentially don't receive the revenue from the programs, right? When we accredit a program, the program charges the revenue to the student, and the school keeps all that. We don't get any portions of student tuition money or anything like that. However, so there's no scholarships globally through us. However, the ICF Professional Coaches Family Organization does have grants available for some purposes, and some of those are actually purposed to use for individuals to receive coach training. We also are coming out with a new initiative soon, which we're just starting to discuss, but obviously in the light of just what we're experiencing nationwide now with diversity, inclusion, equity, belonging, and systematic racial injustices, we are really looking at creating some grants specifically for individuals of color to be able to receive coach training through a grant program through ICF. So there are things coming from us soon that we are working on right now, but there are additional grants available through ICF Professional Coaches Family Organization as well for other items too.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Raquel. That's it for the questions that we have here. Any last words of wisdom from either one of you, Luke or Raquel, on our topic here?
Yeah, well, you know, listen, I was just chatting with Lubna and telling her that I look forward to this post-COVID society, so that Raquel and I can possibly join you in Miami for a chapter event sometime. But until then, we're happy to be able to be a resource for you. And I think the thing that we want all ICF members to know is that, listen, we're a resource to you. We want to help you in any way we can. And if we can't, we'll be happy to get you to someone who can. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us if we can ever help in any way, because we do want to make sure that we're helping you as our members. That's really our number one goal.
Awesome. Thank you. Let me tell you, Susan and I and the rest of our colleagues are overjoyed and thankful for you both to be able to make this time for us. And thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You are so welcome. It's listen, Miami was South Florida was my first chapter event, so it will always be my favorite chapter. So you have me on record hearing that it was my first one. You guys have been so welcoming, and I'm glad that I'm able to introduce Raquel to you guys. But happy to help in anything we can.
Thank you.
And I do want to say that we will be planning our social gathering for December with the hope that there's no corona, and we'll invite you, Luke and Raquel, to come over, please.
Yeah, please. I mean, we would love that. We love actually coming out and visiting in person and things like that. And so I'm not that far away. So it's good to see you guys. I'm glad you're all staying well and safe, and hopefully your families are as well. So
Thank you. And any other questions for Luke before we go into announcements? I don't know if you have any, Misha. I have just one, but I know there's some questions. Yes, please go ahead.
I was telling, I was saying before, I attended a non-ICF program. So how do I find, I just looked it up and found some more information about it. How do I find out if that can be, used as my base course?
Yep. So yeah, common question. So anyone that attends a non-accredited coach training program, if you're applying for a credential, you're going to apply via the portfolio pathway, which essentially means that you'll have to upload all of your course documents, and our staff will actually review all of those course documents, and then we actually will evaluate credit. It's very similar to, I compare it, when people get confused about it, I compare it to like a college registrar, like when you transfer from one college to the other.
Yes.
Send us your transcript and course materials, and then we actually audit those and say, okay, we're going to award you this number of hours. And a lot of times with non-accredited training partners, we don't award the full amount because their curriculum doesn't truly match our standards. So, sometimes people are a little bit disappointed when they go through a 150-hour program and we sort of say, okay, we can only award 100 hours of this.
Well, I have a bone to pick because I looked up coaching and this one came up and I never saw anything from ICF. I mean, I had like 2 choices when I looked up coaching. So it's just, I would have been happy if there was a more visibility of ICF when I was looking for coaching.
Are you talking about, so I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, because I can't, so when you looked up coaching, you mean when you Googled coaching?
Yes.
Or what specifically are you talking about? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Yeah, I'll look at our, I'm happy to pass that on to marketing and things like that, because that's something that we need. But right now, if I Google coaching, we're the 4th result.
Well, so, this was a few years ago.
Yeah, it could be. So our SEO, obviously search engine optimization, has gotten much better over the years. Yeah. And so we tried to do that, but there's,
not only that, Luke, I think we learn as we connect with other coaches. Like I also took an unaccredited course first, but then met some coaches that are certified and learned about the certification. So it is a journey, right? I mean, it's a journey. Sure. There's no way they're going to be able to give us the world, but it's slowly you learn. So please join us in these meetings. You learn more. Feel free to connect with me privately or with Misha. Our numbers and our emails are available on those sites. Shakila, I think Luke had a great idea for you, which is connect with the people there, but definitely see you as a great opportunity for Ignite for the foundation, Luke. I would love to be part of it and give my hours dedicated to women in Pakistan, very close to my heart. I think that the more you connect with us, the more you learn about these things. It's as learn as we go, right? So I did get some credits, Luke, when I did my application for PCC. Some of my programs were, given credit, but it's not full credit because the process is different. So good luck with that. And please feel free to reach to us and we'll help you more after this webinar.
Thank you.
Misha, I don't know if you're welcome.
And thank you, Misha.